Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of It's Just Bodybuilding with Big Ron Partlow and my co-host, Dusty Hanshaw. How you doing, Dusty?
Awesome. I'm excited that we finally got this thing going after months of you being asked and me starting to hear about it. We're actually doing what they're asking for. Amazing.
Yeah, I really missed the podcast realm, and I really overly enjoyed being a guest on a bunch of podcasts recently. And so, I just was like, man, I got to do this. And, I just kept thinking, who would I go back to podcasting with,
Right.
Trying to think, well, they have to be handsome, but they can't be prettier than me. And then they have to be funny, but they can't be funnier than me.
This is a tricky line for you.
It's a very difficult, there's a whole bunch of them that the other person cannot excel at.
That's and it's not in my seat. All right, I got
it. No, man. I couldn't think of anyone else that can finish my sentences quite the way you can, Dusty. So, so here's to episode 1. I raised my coffee as well. There you go. So, man, what's the last couple podcasts you were on?
So I actually, the most memorable one I recently did was actually with Scott. We had a nice hit one on it, and Advices. I can't remember which of his 77 shows it was.
I think it was that Get Huge one, like fucking huge one or whatever he calls it.
Yeah, and that one, it went really well. Like, I always like to see the feedback that comes through on them because kind of like our show, like I prefer to not know what's going to be asked. That way you get the more true answers. And I'm always worried because in the bodybuilding realm, so much of our answers are the same shit. And it's good to hear that people never get tired of hearing the truth, because I think sometimes it sounds a little repetitive because the secret is repetitive.
Yeah, exactly. I really got a kick out of being on some of the podcasts I was on, and they're like, things, man, have just taken off. Like, I mean, what's it only been 2 or 3 years since I did All Bowl Radio? Right. And since then, everyone's doing video now. Like the Joe Rogan effect has trickled down into pretty much every level of podcasting now, where they're doing the two hosts are right there on high def video, and they're bringing up clips and they're showing stuff and they're bringing in guests. And I mean, I remember when podcasts were just like scratchy audio files, and but it is really, I mean, if you think about it, I do think that it's Joe Rogan's model that everyone wants to do, at least functionally and visually.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, I think that's for us, though, the nice fit is, I like the idea of that model, but not nearly as polished as in intentionally. Let things be what they'll be. I do look forward to the live videos coming up so that people are like, all right, yep, he really did just say that shit. And, tell them not to watch that episode.
Yeah, that's something that I've had to do. So, like I did Nick Trigili's show, and then that actually took off. Like, I got a lot of good feedback about that, but I had to make sure my mom didn't listen to it, so I actually had to send her a message. And then I did a bunch of other shows that went really well. I did Troy Brown's show, and I did Fuad's show, and I did an Advices with Scott, and I just had to make sure that my mom definitely didn't tune in on Facebook by accident. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, there's my son. Oh shit.
Yeah. I don't know why my dog's barking, but he'll calm the fuck down. I gave him an Ambien before the show, so it should hit him soon.
Perfect. That's good.
So I put a little thing up yesterday, saying we were going to do the show.
Right.
And you put a little thing up, and we were wondering if anyone was maybe going to be interested. And kind of got, well, how many comments did you get on one photo?
Oh, man.
Pretty good hit.
And then I'm always fascinated by how many people will message you instead of commenting. So I got
that's what happened.
Didn't even comment, but it's all good because the main thing was they were excited, and I did notice that I have a feeling people already understand that there's going to be some guests we can have that not as many places have the access to, because I had a lot of people send me message, are you going to have this person, that person? And it's like, yeah, we are.
Yeah, well, it was funny. The first person that commented on my post was Jay.
Right.
It's like, when are we on? And I was like, oh, I was gonna message you.
We thought we'd get it going before we hit you.
Yeah, we thought maybe we'd like work the kinks out and make sure nothing's like fucked up about it before we bring on like probably the best guests you could possibly get. You know.
Yeah. We want to make sure we have the ambient timing for Jed perfect before Jay's.
Oh yeah, exactly. He's got a new rawhide, so it should be okay.
There we go.
So yeah, one of the reasons I'm dealing with the dog today is because I'm batching it right now. Emily's out of town. She's visiting the mother, as they say, and so it's me and the dog.
Well, make sure when she's coming home you don't send any inappropriate text this time to the wrong person.
Right. Yes.
Good stuff right there. So what is, how long is she gone? How long are we bachelor lifing it here?
6 whole days, which is a long time when you're the only one walking the dog. I mean, you know that deal.
Yes.
And so it's been 6 whole days of kind of running back and forth in the gym, a little more than normal, and hanging out a little bit longer than normal. I was trying to be here all night. You know what I mean? Spend some time with the dog, geez. So, but it's been a little fun. Watch some movies that Emily wouldn't have wanted to watch. She doesn't really do sci-fi, so I watched a couple of like sci-fi movies I had on my list on Netflix.
You had it prepared.
Yeah.
Leaves next.
Yeah, I like spaceships and shit, but she kind of tunes out.
Right. I know the feeling, but it's the opposite at my house. There's movies I walk in on and I'm like, what the fuck are you watching? I get the look. I'm like, I don't mean to judge. It just seems like a waste of fucking time.
What is she watching?
Oh no, I mean, there'd just be like really like poor old I walk in and there's some King kind of episode, way back in the day, but it's not a good one. It's not like when you walk in and you see quality. I'm like, this guy learned to act this morning.
Yeah.
While he was here, you can see him going, I'm sad.
Some people enjoy the B movies. Those people that like the low budget shit.
But then I ask if you've seen the, like Office Space, and I get a blank stare, and I'm tempted to throw you out of my house when the answer is no. I'm like, what?
Right. Office Space was a fantastic running joke, like the first 4 years at Mutant there when I was in the office. Because, all the one-liners, when Jonathan was working there, they were just going back and forth constantly.
Yeah. No, so that whole era between that and, a lot of that kind of era of films ran for the longest time. So now I'm bumping into people, and it shocks me how many people haven't seen Clerks and Office Space.
Yeah. That's some funny shit. Exactly. I've had a bit of an interesting week, because I'm such a music nut and I'm such a huge Tool fan, and they released a new single after 13 years of no material, and their new album comes out at the end of the month, and they put all their old stuff on streaming finally. Right. It's never been available.
Entered into this century. So
yeah. So I haven't been listening to Tool at the gym because I'm on Spotify now.
Right.
So I all of a sudden new playlist. It's been a really exciting week for me, Dusty.
Well, I even see your followers sharing stuff on the download count and.
Yeah. No, it's been kind of cool.
Proper squat day. You're listening to Tool.
Yeah. Here's a few songs for the playlist. They got so much weird shit, right? You can't train to all their music. It's like sometimes a long 12-minute slow song is like
that not might quite what you want. Middle of a set.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's nice when those pleasant little surprises, kind of come to the gym with you. You got some new tunes for the day, but they're actually old tunes, but they're better than new tunes because you're already emotionally attached to them and you're going to train legs.
Yeah, but that makes perfect sense. That's like when when a song comes on the radio randomly that immediately reminds you of high school football or something like that. And it's
yeah.
In that zone, or bad decisions in my case, whatever.
You know, it's like every time I hear Tina Turner's "Simply the Best," I think about winning the Peace Bowl football championship in high school. I just can't not think of it. You know what I mean? So there's songs that come on and you like you just got to turn it up.
Right.
And you got to make sure no one's watching you as you sing along.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm not singing Simply the Best in my Jeep right now. No, sir. No, sir.
That's how it goes. So, Dusty, we were talking about, what are we going to talk about on this show? It's just bodybuilding. And people asking, what does it's just bodybuilding mean? It's just bodybuilding? And I was like, yeah, but there's also a bit of a double meaning. It's how you say it. So you can say it's just bodybuilding, or you can say it's just bodybuilding. And yeah, and so that's kind of our intention with the title of the show is we don't want to take it too seriously either. We want to kind of, as the Brits say, take the piss out of it, and make it funny and show you guys, show everybody what we've really done to kind of be where we are and do what we have done and still will do in the industry. And I really wanted to do it with someone who had the same bodybuilding mentality as me. There's lots of people that might have been, good in other areas, but I thought he's got to be hardcore as well, because the show has to be kind of hardcore, essentially. Don't know about the dog.
Fucking rawhide is just not functional.
Hey, Jed, come here, bud. So, yeah, so that's what it's going to be. It's just bodybuilding. It's through a lens of two kind of meatheads. What do we think of the world when we view it through our messed up perception?
Yeah, so it makes me a little nervous to let that be seen too much, but no, I mean, I think that it's kind of nailed to it, and particularly with the whole hardcore mentality. I often get people that are shocked because they view you or me as someone in the gym that's very hardcore, but then simultaneously is making wisecracks between sets, and it like throws their brain off. Like they think that we should be in there angry and breathing hard and approachable because we're hardcore. And it's like, I think as you get more seasoned, it's a light switch. I can be really joking with you, and then as soon as I touch the bar, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, well, that's actually something Lee Priest said a long time ago. He was like, once you know how to train hard, it's a skill. It's something that you can do that other people can't do as easily. Like you can just do it right now. Mm-hmm. And, he talked about how, he liked to have fun in the gym too. So, he might crack a joke or, rib somebody, but then he'd get under a, 5-plate squat and just pound out a set. Yeah. And so it is a skill, obviously, for the most part, you try to stay as focused as possible. But, I mean, sometimes when you're training with somebody, like when you and I train together, I mean, those are the funnest workouts. Like that's really like kind of reminds me of when I was in high school and I was training with my buddy and we were going to be huge one day, and you're just training as hard as you can. You're not like when we train, I'm not actually thinking about bodybuilding.
Right. Yeah. You're in the moment.
I'm having fun. I'm like, this fucking fun, he's going to rip this bar off the ground. And, those are the best things about bodybuilding, or the having fun in the gym. So, you got to do whatever you have to do to have fun in the gym. Because, what are you going to do something that makes you miserable for 20 years to get good at it?
Right.
And, keeping my headphones on and my hat low and fucking not talking to anyone. That's also fun too. When I love training alone too,
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, but I think people think that guys like you or me are just like one way all the time. But man, you had to bend in a lot of ways to make it through these many years of doing this.
Right.
Had to find a way.
It's all about. It's also just it's day to day. It's season, where you're at in your prep, where you're at in your off season. Even like you said, who you're training with. I've had training partners in the past where come in and they've got an energy because their wife or their kid or whatever. And I've had to simply say, like, hey, as a friend, I do care. I just don't fucking care right now. Yeah. So for the next 2 hours, sorry, I don't give a shit. If you're going to bring that here, go. I don't need you here. I do have my headphones. I'll get to work. Now, obviously, I've been training with Matt for so long that it's literally a light switch where you just we know, like we'll have a little mini 3-minute conversation before we start, usually around 11:10 because I'm 10 minutes late. And then,
which is just on time. You're on time.
It's on time. Like if I will text somebody and say I'm 5 minutes late if I'm gonna be there at 11:15.
Right. Yes. Exactly. Or you send them that that meme that says, "Hey, I'm just around the corner," and it's like the guy floating in space.
Right. Exactly. Which technically is a corner, and we're good to go. Yes. No, but I mean that's the only change. And then just like you and I mean, typical workouts. It's just how much weight next. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I am a pretty big believer that, and not everybody does this, is for me, a good training partner is in my set, which means when I'm going there and they're not silently staring off.
Yeah.
It's an energy to me. So that's why a lot of guys in my videos have had people say, "Oh, your training partner counts every fucking rep." I'm like, "Yep."
Yeah,
that's how I know he's in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that also keeps me in during their set. So when it's my turn to go, I know how many I got to beat them by. Because let's be honest, there's still a quiet competition going, even if it's not the same weight.
Well, so that's something I wanted to say. I'm training with a guy. He's a buddy of mine from the gym. He's been at that gym before we had it, and he hired me. And I was like, well, let's bang out some workouts. And it's just how scheduling is a big thing too, right?
Yeah.
So, and the schedule just works, and he's great to train with, and he's making great gains. And so we started training together fairly regular. And it's good because he's younger and he's gaining size and getting stronger.
Right.
And I'm actually busting my ass to try to stay ahead of him.
Right.
But it's motivating because I'm 43 now. And so I'm thinking, well, everyone's coming up to me. They're like, that guy you're training with is getting huge. So,
right.
I'm like happy. I'm like, yeah, you bet he is.
Right. Yeah,
it's a easy bet he is. That's the plan. That's why, that's what happens when people train with me for a long period of time, So that's what I like to think, you take a bit of credit for it. But yeah, so that's fun too. There's all sorts of different types of people that are great to train with.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my best training partners ever was my best friend, Scott. He trained with me for a couple of my nationals.
Right.
And when I was a lot younger, and he's totally natural and he's not even a bodybuilder.
Right.
But he was a great training partner because he was the perfect spotter.
Right.
And it was just all about whatever I wanted to do. Like he never picked a single exercise. Right. So, that's a great thing too. If you have someone who's supporting you that much, training with you like that. I'm sure Matt's very similar, when you're getting ready for a show, it's like, fuck, what are we doing today?
Down for anything we do. And I have found my best training partners typically aren't bodybuilders. I've really run into, aside from you and a couple guys I've trained with, and this is something I used to get irritated with when we'd film for Mutant, was, we'd go in the gym and I'm like, all right, let's do this. And, oh, my elbow. And, oh, I can't do that because my pinky finger. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck do you do? You can't do skull crushes. You can't do deadlifts. I'm like, I'm sorry. I thought we were training. You know what I mean?
Right.
Whereas when I've trained with, construction workers, they walk in and I'm like, we're deadlift today. They're like, okay. Like, it don't matter. I could say squatting, deadlifting, doing preacher curls. Okay. And they'll grind it out. And then the other big thing I found with a lot of those guys is, I had one guy that was a maintenance guy for Rockford Fosgate. That dude got injured at work at one point, so he couldn't really train. But he sure as shit was in the gym with me at 4 a.m. for like the 3 weeks he couldn't train, spotting me.
Really?
Still showed up every day. He's like, nope, I got a responsibility to be here, so I got to be here either way. And it was an injury where it was actually in his hip, so he could spot me on everything except for like squats. So yeah, and at the time I still owned my business and everything else. So we were training at 4 a.m. That dude got there at 4 a.m. He's like, all right, let's roll. And I'm like, you can't train, but you woke up at 3:30 in the morning to meet me.
The most impressive part of that story is that you were training at 4 a.m.
well, see, if I was in your world, it means you just hadn't went to bed yet.
Yeah, that would be like before bed for me back in the day when I worked in the bar, right? Man, oh man. So I wanted to bring up. I had a lot of good questions, so we'll get to some of the questions later. I put up something on my Instagram last night. Just, ask us some questions.
Yeah, for sure.
And I got a bunch of those. We'll hit those later. But I got a couple of topics thrown at me. someone said, hey, I don't really have a question, but I'd love to hear you and Dusty kind of describe your first contest prep. Like, what did you do and how did it go? So you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so my first prep, I had come off of, a lot of people know, I came off of playing hockey. I had a shoulder injury that I believed I was getting a surgery to fix and go back and play. And I played one celebrity game at home in Arizona, and it was a no-checking game, and I was sore for days. And I was never the most shocking, I know, but talented, crafty hockey player. I was a little bit more on the abusive side.
You weren't Hans McGee?
Yeah, when I was beaten, I was putting the tinfoil on before the games,
Right.
If you guys haven't seen Slapshot, you have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I got it. Well, I'm Canadian, so it's
yes.
like...
Yeah, you guys are actually forced to watch that at birth.
Yes.
So I realized I couldn't play anymore. I got a gym membership, and I knew I just didn't want to be normal. I literally looked up. There was a sign on the wall that said there was a show. It was 7 weeks away, and I'm like, I'm going to do that. So it wasn't the typical, I didn't look like a bodybuilder. I wasn't big. I was just like, I need somewhere to put this energy. I didn't know what to do. So, I had read a little bit about dieting. When I say a little bit, I mean, I understood that tuna fish was a good option. So I ate 2 cans of tuna every 2.5 hours for 7 weeks. I can't actually eat tuna anymore.
Yeah, that'll do it.
But I got shredded, and I probably lost what little muscle mass I had.
Right. But you got lean.
Yeah, and I hated it. I actually hated every step of prep. I actually told everyone around me I would never do it again, but I just couldn't quit because quitting wasn't really my deal. I'd already said to myself I was going to do it. But I got on stage. I did all right. I think I took 3rd in my first show. And for whatever reason, which is funny now in hindsight, once I competed, it became worth it. And I knew that, okay, if I was going to do this again, I would have someone help me. You know what I mean? And do it right. But now the reason I say it's funny is because now I don't enjoy the stage, and the prep is the part I like. Like, I could literally have told you this when you were in my room in Vancouver before a show a couple of years ago. I'm perfectly fine pulling my water, looking in the mirror, having my buddy take a couple pictures and going, all right, dude, you made it, and then not even walking on stage. Because I love the prep and the show. I'm like, I got to sit on stage, kind of boring. I don't really love posing. So, but it was awesome. And I think it really, I got to learn the value to me of the suffering and doing something that was hard to do, that I would say I, quote, didn't really want to do, but obviously I did want to do it because I could stop any time. No one was making me do it. And that was when I realized that my addiction was purely for the actual prep and the pain.
It's funny. Someone asked me the other day about, you guys, you and Dusty, they actually said you and Dusty mentioned suffering a lot. and I go, yeah, I said it, who knows if I hadn't have found bodybuilding, maybe I would have wound up spending $100,000 on dominatrixes by this point. I mean, maybe I would have had to find another outlet. Yeah, I mean, it would have manifested itself in some other weird way, right? Maybe that's what the guys who spend all that money on getting whipped and chained, maybe they just need to go to the gym, do some rest pause.
You got them a West Coast Iron membership. They could have said weird shit.
So yeah, that's a funny story. So were you eating any carbs?
No.
Yeah, that's what I figured when you said just 2 cans of tuna.
Yeah, that was diet. That was it.
Yeah.
Well, I was also poor, so that played a role.
So I went. That's the stranded on an island diet.
Yeah, exactly.
Just nothing but fish.
Yeah, and it made it very easy to go shopping. I go to one aisle, load that shit up there, and walk out the door.
Were you getting the big Costco cans?
No, I would just get regular cans of tuna. I would eat 2 of them, squish the water out, and I mean, obviously, I always hated it, but I really hate it now. So I would just put it in my mouth, chew, and then rinse and swallow it.
Right.
So one tuna was about 4 bites.
I remember there was one contest prep because I used tuna for one meal in most of my first 6-7 shows.
That was before
a typical bodybuilder
too.
Before they had the what?
the bags of tuna that are all like actually halfway decent. And
yeah. So I remember there was like a point where I financially stepped up a rung in the ladder of society.
Right.
And I started buying the white albacore tuna.
Yes.
Yeah. You start buying that stuff, and it's like, then you look at the people buying the normal tuna, and you're like, oh, that's just too bad. You know?
Thank God I'm balling now.
Yeah, I'm balling now. You know, I'm working the VIP door right at the bar, and I'm like, you know, pocketing an extra couple hundred a night. So, you know, I'm up to the albacore tuna. And, you know, there's something about going into a prep knowing that you're eating the same, you know, the same tuna as Jay Cutler, you know?
Right.
And, you know, because he wouldn't eat the cheap shit. You're thinking he buys the white albacore. For sure he does.
Of course he does.
You know? I mean, if it was nowadays, you'd be getting the steaks from the butcher, right?
Right.
But back then, we weren't really doing that.
Life has changed pretty drastically on how shopping goes now.
Yeah.
I did have somebody ask me, oh, isn't that expensive last year or something during a prep? And I didn't want to answer because the true answer was I had no idea, because I just buy what I need to buy, put it in the basket, and pay for it. And that's kind of back to something I tell guys all the time when they say, what's some advice to a young bodybuilder? I tell them, have a good job. Because you've got money. This is expensive. And the last thing you want to do is not be able to do stuff correctly because you think that you can be a bum and be a bodybuilder. I'm like, no, you got to do something with your life, not just for your life, but even for bodybuilding. So you got the cash to do this.
Yeah, I remember I've done the math a few times. I don't remember the exact number, but I kind of estimated like, you know, how much have I spent on meat, you know, chicken, you know, chicken, steak, you know, I sort of calculated, wow, you know, if I average this and times it by 25 years plus this and blah, blah, blah. And it's like $350,000.
Right.
And I'm like,
at all.
Jesus, no, but, you know, just to think that, you know, that's what I spent on, you know, the meat and protein.
Right.
It's just fucking nuts. But that's what it takes. People don't. How much do you think Jay Cutler spent on food? Because the guy ate the expensive shit, you know?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he's going to the butcher to get all his steaks and stuff, you know? Like, it's, and he ate a lot of food, too. So, like, you know, how much do you think he spent? It's crazy.
I can't even fathom it. But that's why it's so important to drive that home. Is it's like you have to, and we didn't all start at the white albacore. You know what I mean? But
yeah, you got to work your way up.
You know, because I do remember back when I started, like having to pay attention and being like, I would love to do that food, but I can't.
Yeah.
You know, and that's such a regular question, of course, as well as, you know, well, how do you have the money for gear? And I'm like, actually, it's the money for food that you got to worry about.
Yeah, fucking gear is nothing. Like,
that's a cheap shit.
Your food bill's gonna crush that.
If you're a good bodybuilder and you're eating correctly, your food bill will destroy your drug bill. If you're a shitty bodybuilder, probably barely spending your money on food because you've got a, you know, as Chris always says, you've got a graph broken down of your cycle, but you have no idea what you ate yesterday.
Yeah, you got spreadsheets. Spreadsheets for everything but your diet. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, no. I was into my first prep was, what year was yours?
2000. Oh God, for the very first one would be 2001, and then I didn't do it again until 2006.
Right. Okay. So my first prep was 97.
Okay.
And I had already trained. I'd already lived in Australia for 2 years and trained with a couple of guys down there, Nick Jones and John Davey, and they were like really good bodybuilders down there, right? And you know, Nick wound up winning a world title, a NABA world title, and John wound up turning pro and doing the Olympia one year.
Yeah.
So they were both good bodybuilders, you know, and I learned a lot from them. So when I did my 97 prep, I'd already watched them get ready for really high level shows.
Right.
So I knew exactly what I was doing, you know, like, you know, John kind of wrote me up a real basic diet just to start with, and then I just took it from there. And he just told me, just have, every Saturday after you train, go eat a big cheat meal.
Right.
And that's like literally as much thought as I put into it. I was like, okay. And then the rest of the week, I just ate my diet perfectly. And looking back on it, it was very small It was pretty low calorie, but it was balanced.
Right.
It wasn't like low carb. It had carbs in like 4 out of 6 meals. But it was low calorie, like I was having 6 ounces of steak with a cup of rice, like, so it were small meals. But
how big were you then?
I started my diet at 265.
Yeah. So see,
and I competed at 230.
Even though you didn't hadn't competed yet.
Yeah. So I'd already been training for 7 years, right?
Yeah.
And I'd already squatted 5 plates, that sort of stuff, right? So yeah, but it was just a real simple, balanced diet, and I lost 35 pounds. And then all they told me to do, like, we just overthink everything now.
Oh, for sure.
All they told me to do was like, yeah, on Thursday, just put your carbs back in, because I did like the 4-day deplete.
Right.
It's like, just put your carbs back in on Thursday and, drink a lot. And then on Friday, just stop drinking.
Right.
I was like, okay.
Yeah. Simple. Done.
Yeah. And I just did this like ridiculously simple, I think it was like Friday at 6 p.m. I stopped drinking when I went to weigh in, stopped drinking. I was like, okay.
Right.
And, and looking back on it, like for a first timer, it looked pretty good,
Yeah. For sure.
But you just contrast that with how complicated everything gets now, and it's funny because I just spoke with, I'm not going to say his name because I want to throw him under the bus, but I just spoke with a pro who's really good and just had a great showing at a show, probably his best ever. And I just said, what did you do differently? And he goes, actually just simplified the shit out of everything. I quit doing this and that, and I just quit worrying about this and this and this, and I just worried about this and this, and that was it.
Right.
And just boom. And so just, I think people need to remember that. Sometimes the lessons of your early shows, you look back on them when you're older and you're like, fuck, there's something to be learned from that.
Oh, sure. I think there's, we both got a good friend who I feel has gotten away from the basics that put him on the map. And I think it's because of all the coaching and the Instagram and the social media, and everyone's got their secrets and their ways to put on muscle. I know I had put up a post recently talking about how there's so many guys out there teaching these fancy ways to do things to put on muscle, but I don't see any muscle. Right. People messaged me and they thought that it was a very specific jab at a couple of coaches that I know well, like what the hell is hypertrophy coach? What's his?
Bennett. Yeah, Joe Bennett.
Yeah, Joe. It was so funny because I'm like, actually, I have a ton of respect for what he does, and he and I go back and forth all the time. The problem is the young guys are putting the cart in front of the horse, and they're looking at his exercises and thinking that he doesn't do a deadlift, or he doesn't believe in rack deads, or you know what I mean? They're not seeing that he's teaching above and beyond, because shit, I mean, he wouldn't have his career if all he was saying is go do a deadlift. Here's how to do it. He'd be done talking. Well, that's
I really like his stuff, actually. He's good. But yeah, I see what you mean. As the kids have their own filter, right? You throw he'll put up a post where he's doing banded rack deads with like the strictest form I've ever seen.
I saw it yesterday, yep.
And then he'll put up a post where he's doing like kind of a tricep thing with a cable. Their brain will filter out the deadlift.
Yeah, no, sure.
So that's a problem. It's not his problem. It's their problem.
Yeah, and that's how perception works.
Yeah.
Right? That's why I laugh, because I'm like, no, this is actually about you guys more than it's about them. Because again, Joe doesn't need to put up a post about a fucking deadlift or a bench. That stuff you're supposed to. That's the foundation. You're supposed to know that already. You're supposed to be doing that already. And what he's saying is, now that you've got this awesome foundation, let me show you how to put this specific tile on your roof.
Right.
This is something you've never seen before. Watch how to execute it, and it's just very funny because, again, that's where things get confused. It's like, that's why I've almost become the guy that's so basic, even more so than I actually am in my own training. So it's like you've got both ends of the spectrum. Now,
right.
Not my basics, I wouldn't follow the guy if I thought he was a fucking idiot. I surely wouldn't be commenting on his stuff. So
yeah, exactly.
One of those things where, again, a lot of guys do that, and like you said, And I've seen Fuad mention it and other guys I respect too, where they say, I had to get back to the basics. I'm back to squatting. I'm back to bench pressing. You know what I mean? And you're like, it's kind of funny because you want to go, it's amazing. Or one thing that I've slipped up on is all of a sudden I need something to grow. And I'm like, oh, I should do it a couple more times a week. And it's like, damn well doing it more often don't help. How are you falling into that trap after 15 years of knowledge?
Yeah, there's I know exactly what you mean. It's funny because one of the topics I actually had listed here was mistakes you made as a veteran.
Right.
And, so we're already on that one. It's, as a veteran, I found towards the end of my competitive days, I was trying to just frantically find ways to train really hard around injuries.
Right.
But, the injuries were, looking back, I mean, they were all my own fault. I kind of ignoring little pains, or I knew things were wearing out in a certain way, but I didn't allow myself to discard that exercise because I thought it was too important. Right. Or, so there's lots of mistakes that you make that along the road, you look back on them and you're like, shit, I should have stopped doing that.
Right. It's so
you know what I mean?
Hindsight, right?
Yeah, but complicating things is definitely one of them, But what about the perfect prep?
Oh, so this is a tricky one for me, and I know you and I have talked about this before. I got so used to preps being agonizing, and exhausting and painful, and all of these things where the food's really low for a long time, you're exhausted, you're dragging, and actually. In 2014, when I turned pro, it was the first time I had a prep that was easy. I mean, easy to the point that Chris and I, Aceto, obviously for those who don't know, our emails are very simple. I send him my check-in pictures. He says what to do. I send back the letter K, and we're done. So, I mean, it's literally every other day because you know how Chris does pictures. Well, he gave me a super high day, which, of course, as you know, means it might be sushi or cheeseburgers and fries. And I got one. Then I got another one the next day. Then I got a third one. Then we went back to my diet. And this is like a couple weeks out, And then all of a sudden I send him some pictures about 2 weeks out, a week and a half out. And I send him the pictures. He sends back, okay, we need a couple more super high days. And I remember my brain going, fuck. Like, I'm not tired. I'm not beat up. I'm eating all this food. And even though the pictures were good, I couldn't get past it in my head. Like, this doesn't feel right, Right. And somehow Chris being Chris, he knew. My phone rings. And it's the reverse of every other phone call. He goes, hey, you got to trust me. And I'm like.
He just read your mind.
I know you're struggling with the amount of food we're eating and that you're not dying. You just got to trust me. And I was like, no, I do. But it was funny because in my head, I was like, well, maybe when I get the cheeseburger, I just won't put any toppings on it. And maybe I'll only eat one. But I was already deducting in my head, getting it away from exactly what he asked me for because it was too easy. So him just telling me and calling me, I was like, fuck, okay, I'm just going to do what I'm told, eat the food. And it's the reverse of everyone else. I know everyone else is so used to wanting food that they're adding shit. And for me, it was very difficult to have such. I mean, here it was 2014. I've been with Chris since 2010. I'd never had an easy prep. I had preps where I was only allowed to think 1 hour ahead because I thought I was going to die. So that's what I was used to. So having a seamless one really fucked with me, actually. And obviously, I got in shape. I won. Everything was gold. But during the perfect prep was like the perfect nightmare.
Right. Yeah, that's funny that you struggled with it. I remember the first year I worked with Chris. He actually struggled with it because he would I would send him pictures and he would call me and he would say, he's like, what are your carbs again? Right. And I'd go, I'm having, 2 cups of rice at 3 of my meals and, a cup and a half of oatmeal for breakfast. And he's like, I don't, he's like, that just sounds like so much. And then, I sent him pictures the next day and he's like, fuck, you need a high day. He like gives me a high day. He tells me
too much is too little.
Yeah, he's like you're this is like ridiculous. How'd you lose weight? And then I have the high day, and I'd send him pictures, and he'd like, God, so pizza makes you harder, and then and then he'd call me and he'd go, what are you doing? And I'd go, I'm just doing my cardio. And he'd go, how much cardio are you doing? And I'm like, 20 minutes a day. And he's like, fuck. He's like, don't even tell me that. I don't want to know,
It's not enough, but it's too much.
Yeah, and I kept saying to him, I'm like I haven't been hungry once this entire prep. Like, we're 4 weeks out, and I am not even giving a fuck about food. And he's like, yeah. And then he would always tell me, yeah, 2001, I had Jay on 1,000 carbs and no cardio. It was Twilight Zone.
It was breaking as Chris says, the rules with a Z. It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah. He said it was just Twilight Zone, 1,000 carbs, no cardio. He said sometimes it just happens. And he's like, just get out of the way, Yeah,
you can't overthink it when it's smooth, just like you can't overthink when it's hard. You get to figure it out or grind it off. But
yeah, because he just kept
imagine Chris feeding you all that food and trying to understand how the hell you're losing weight.
Yeah, he actually told me at one point, I'd have to go back and look because I don't know what the amounts were, but at one point he told me the only bodybuilder that he had ever dieted on more food was Jay.
Right.
And he said he was like ridiculous, like 3 cups of rice per meal and getting leaner and all that sort of shit. But that was just a weird year, just a weird year.
And did you find, I think this is something to jam with people too. So the following year, when you worked with them again, not the same?
Well, I actually took the following year off.
Okay.
Because I had really hurt my knee. That was the initial injury. First time I hurt my knee that turned into like my shitty knee that I wound up tearing. That was the initial injury, was 2010, right around that show. Okay. So I looked awesome at the show, but I had just hurt my knee like 2 weeks out. And I was like, something's wrong, but I didn't know. And so 2011 I took off, but then 2012 was another great year. The only thing with that was probably my worst prep because I was completely vacant mentally because I'd been going through like a big breakup.
Right.
So I was just doing exactly what was on the paper, but my brain was like in another universe, right? And I wound up getting like, a close second to Antoine that year. And so it was funny. I said to myself after, I'm like, fuck, I guess if I can get second without even being here, I should still give it another try. Because every year at the end I started asking myself, like, should I come here again? And I figured, well, I just took second to a guy and I wasn't even fucking involved emotionally with the show at all, So so that was an interesting experience as well.
Absolutely.
You've had that too, though, right?
Oh yeah, I've had every positive and negative prep on the world.
But you had a big breakup prep.
Oh yeah, no, and that was I had just a mess between that business life, and that was actually the only year that, on the contrary to you, nothing worked. Like I got to the stage, when you're in trouble is when you're trying to find good lighting a couple days before the show, and you just can't find any lights that make you look good. And in the moment, it's bad lighting, and then you get past it. You realize, no, I just look like shit. I remember telling Chris when that show was over. He already knew. I said, man, I executed everything, and he's like, I know. And I'm like, but this isn't your fault. Like it wouldn't have mattered what he wrote, what we did. It was not going to play out, and I definitely learned that following year because once everything was back to normal, that was 2013 was the year that Chris coined to me that I was awesome at getting shredded and sucked at losing weight. Because I would gain weight while I was dieting. I think the last show I did, the lowest I got on the scale during prep was 258. But I competed at 270.
Right.
So, I always hit a point where the scale starts to go back up. And being open, since everybody always wants to know, it's because I don't take a bunch of shit in the off season. So when it comes in during prep, I can gain weight during prep.
Yeah.
And that's where people are like, how does he do that? It's like, well, because unlike you, I'm not gassed year round and trying to figure out how to get 6 grams of shit in my body during prep.
Yeah, exactly.
So your off period is my heavy craziness, and that's when I can put on size, you know. And of course, the food is perfect, and that's back to the whole thing we preach with guys in the off season. You want to see change, make the food as perfect in off season as you do in pre-contest, you know.
Yeah, that's one thing I like about you. I have a hard time posting food pics.
Right. Because you don't have plates.
Maybe it's because I eat a lot of shit out of shitty, Tupperware dishes, and I'm ashamed of my status in life.
Because I'm gonna tag you on them. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
yeah. But you always have this presentation, right? And but when you post your meals, like, it really does show people, like, yeah, you sit down and you eat 6 fucking meals a day.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they're good too. Like, you throw some pasta in there, and you got your steaks. And
I'm a fat kid. It's got to taste good.
You love it. I got some Instagram questions here. We're coming up. How many minutes we been, man? How many minutes we been? Oh, coming on. Yeah, we're coming on. I got a good one here. What's your best quality as a coach?
Oof. That is a tough one.
Tough one. It's hard to just say one,
I have 10,000 is the problem. I've got so many. No, I would say my best quality is also my worst quality, which is my clients' goals. They become mine. Like, I'm obsessive once we're tapped in. But the reason I say it's also a negative is if you can't give me 150%, I will basically tell you to go away. Because I can't be more invested in your goals than you are. And I legitimately do not understand, oh, yeah, I missed a meal. And I get like 3 or 4 of those row. Oh, it was a tough day. I actually, like, my brain goes, so?
Yeah, it doesn't compute.
Figure it the fuck out. Like, I can't understand it. So that's like
you have absolutely no compassion.
None. That's why you said you were emotionally detached, and I was like, emotion? What's that?
Right. There you go.
No, but I do have clients say that I am locked in, and as you know, it's good and bad. But you'll hear so many of my clients have worked with someone else first, and it turns out that what I think is normal, and I think it's because I've worked with Chris for so long, and to me, check-ins every 3 to 5 days is normal.
Yeah.
It turns out it's completely obscene, or literally yesterday, I didn't check my check-ins till like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which is really late for me, and I felt like frantic. And there's coaches that wait 3 fucking days.
Yeah, it's crazy. I hear that stuff all the time. Like, oh, I'm just waiting to get my diet changes, and I'm like, well, how long have you been waiting? They're like, I don't know. I emailed them on Sunday, and it's like Thursday.
Yeah, your diet might have changed twice by then.
And I'm like, Jesus, fuck. Yeah. So yeah, I know what you mean.
What is your quality that you think either you or your clients would say?
I think that it's the total amount of experience I have will be because that leads me to not panic. It leads me to never make rash decisions. I try to never let my heart rate elevate like robot. Because again, also not just experience, but the people I've worked with have shown me I worked with the best coaches in the world, period.
Right.
Chad Nichols, what the fuck did he ever do, right? and Chris Aceto, and then Scott Abel was, the guy who helped me win my first national title, and he was so far ahead of his time, it's just ridiculous looking back now. He had me doing sprint cardio in 2003.
Yeah. Everyone else is telling you were an idiot and you're going to burn muscle back then.
Yeah, and he just got me peeled, and so yeah, just stuff like that. I've also had a lot of clients tell me, they're like, yeah, man, like, you don't really change much. Like, I guess it's changing one thing at a time. That's also rare, I guess.
Which is fun because I don't know if you do this, but I warn people up front. By the time we're done with the show and you're peeled out of your mind, you're going to look back and go, "That's it."
Yeah. I often send people their starting diet, and they're like, "Where's all the instructions?" And I'm like, well, you eat meal 1, and then a few hours later you eat meal 2. That's the instructions, and you just continue down the list.
You want me to tell you to do it, or do you already know that?
That's it. Just do that. You can swap the rice for potatoes. It's right there. It's just, I don't know. There's nothing else to it. So I think the complicating of things has become a part of a lot of people's branding.
Right.
And a lot of how coaches, here's my system. Right. This is my system. I'm systemized. I have these things I do with all my athletes. And I really don't have any system at all.
Oh, for sure.
Send me your diet. Okay, here's what you're doing. Your goal, lose weight. Okay, cut those carbs and cut that. And let's see how you look next week. Yep. Like, it's not, I don't make people convert to like any sort of, changing someone's lifestyle isn't going to make it easier for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Like I got a guy who's a shift worker, so his meals are kind of staggery some days, and we just deal with it. It's like, you just work around weird circumstances and just be adaptable and know that at the end of the day, it's the basics that matter.
Yeah, so, I tell people that where most people go wrong is they try to tell the body what to do. In reality, what you need to do is give the diet, and then the body will tell you what you need to do.
Yeah.
How to adjust, what to work. I had one of my pro clients last week. She goes to me, how come we used all carbs for this diet? And last year we used fats. And I go, oh, we did? I don't know. It worked. It worked. I mean, and that's what it was. Is I think somewhere along the line, the carbs went up, the body changed. I was like, okay, and we ran with it. He already knew, like, it wasn't even like a concern. It was more like a question. I was like, yeah, I don't really have an answer. In fact, one thing Chris taught me forever ago is don't ever look back at a client's old prep, because it doesn't matter. What worked last year doesn't work this year. So I never look back. I couldn't, and I've got 49 clients right now. So I don't remember what we did last year for your prep.
Right.
I just know we need to get you shredded for this one, and this seems to be working, so let's roll with it.
What about this one here? What was the turning point that made you decide that you were going to go all in as a pro and try to be a pro bodybuilder? Like, that was it. What was the turning point? Can you pinpoint it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was really simple. In 2006, which was my first real attempt show, I worked with JJ Marsh. The prep was brutal. The training was brutal. Everything was the hardest thing I'd ever done. And I loved it. And I had missed now for years since hockey had ended. I was a normal person again. I was working a 9 to 5. And I hated that, because I spent since 12 years old until 18, I was going to be a professional hockey player. Everybody knew it. Everyone around knew it. And I just never wanted to be normal. And I loved this, and I said, screw it, I'm going to go at it. And I knew I didn't have the genetics to be like some top pro winning shows, but I just knew there was an avenue for me somewhere to make a career with this, and I was going to go with it. Because I think where most people screw up in life is they look and say, how can I make money? And then they go to that thing and do it. Right. I said, what do I love to do? Okay, now how do I make money with what I want to do? And it just worked out that way because I didn't have another plan. That was it.
Yeah. I'd say, there's kind of two ways to answer that question. I was all in as a bodybuilder by the time I was 19. I was eating, sleeping, training. Like, I'm going to get huge. I'm going to be a bodybuilder. But I guess it was my third show, the 99 Albertas. And what happened was, I remember when I was in Australia, when I was younger, before I'd competed, I had someone there tell me, because, back in the 90s, right, we're in the 1 pro card a year days, right? So
second for every class.
Yeah, fucking, you get winner take the pro card, second place, set of steak knives.
Right.
And third place, you're fired. Who knows that movie? So he said, he goes, the only people that actually have any shot of being a pro bodybuilder are the guys who show up at national qualifiers at a young age and fucking destroy everybody.
Right.
Statistically, those are the guys who will be good pros. Everyone else is fighting for the random tiny little fucking chance of maybe getting a pro card.
Right.
And it just hit me because I was 19 or 20 when he said that. So I was like, oh, okay. So fast forward to 99, I'm 23 years old. I show up at the Albertas, which is a national qualifier, right? Right. it's a level 2 show. So you do regionals back then, and then you did the provincials, which would be equal to a state show.
Right.
And then you go to nationals, right?
Right.
And, back then the overall winner of provincials got a lifetime bye to nationals.
Right.
So it was a big win. Like if you could win that lifetime bye, you never had to qualify again.
Right.
And so I went to that show and I just destroyed it. Like straight first, like everyone's like fucking smoked the show.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I just smoked a regional, like a national qualifier at a young age. And so just mentally I thought, oh, okay, I can be a pro. It's just a matter of time. I'm one of the guys that can be a pro now. So it just flipped a switch. And I actually believed I was going to be a pro. Oh, it's a matter of time. I'll just do nationals till I win it.
Right.
So that was the turning point for me because of what that guy said to me.
It's funny how that clicks in, but I think it goes back to the big fact that you just said in passing was once you knew, like you didn't believe, you knew you could be a pro then.
Yeah.
So, like you said, it wasn't if, it was when. And I think that is a game changer. And I know, and you and I obviously talked to Chris a ton. I remember when Chris believed Roden could win the Olympia, and Roden believed Chris.
Yes.
But he didn't believe.
Yeah.
And then I remember last year before the Olympia talking to Sean, and I actually called Chris and I said, holy shit, he's going to win. And he goes, yes. And he said, but why? And I said, he knows he's going to win. Like, he knows now. He's not relying on your belief that he can win.
Chris says I'm going to win. Yeah, he's like, I'm going to win.
Yeah, I know, he knew. And it was such a different energy even talking to him. It was like, fuck, well, now he really can win. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember 5 days out. So it was Monday. I was at the gym. Yep. I just finished training, and I turned my phone on, and I got pictures of Roden from Aceto.
Yep.
And he goes, 5 days out, 25 grams of carbs. And I go, he looks fucking dangerous. Right. And I sent it to Chris, and Chris goes, capital letters, he will win.
Right.
I was like,
I know the exact pictures because I have them.
Yeah, he will win. And so I thought, shit, and Chris is a terrible typer. Right. He's fucking he's
properly and everything.
It's like reading you have to learn another language. It's like he has his own code, right? True. But the fact that he actually made capital letters, like he took the time to like double click the arrow and like capital letter it. I was like, fuck, he went all in on that,
These 3 words were very serious.
Yeah, I could see the extra effort and attention to detail that he put on that one. So, it was good. But so what's the future of this show, Dusty? What are you looking for the future here? We're coming up on an hour, so.
I think the biggest thing that I want to make sure that everybody understands that we're trying to do here is, A, obviously we're going to have a good time, but B, really get people back to thinking about the basics of bodybuilding, bringing on guests who have done a lot, whether it's in the industry or on the stage, and get their take. Because I think one thing that more of you guys are going to find is when you strip away the bullshit of everyone trying to find a way to get into your wallet, you're going to find that the top people all kind of have the similar belief of what it takes to take your physique or your career in or out of bodybuilding to the next level. It really comes down to work, consistency, and enjoying what you do. So I think a lot of guys are going to get a great entertaining way of hearing that same thing over and over and over.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the guests that we have lined up because, when we started thinking, who could we get on? And we started naming people that we definitely can get on. I started texting people immediately, and they were responding back like instantly. They're like, I'm in. And we're literally talking as I'm like, oh, he's in. He's in two.
It was in my kitchen. We were discussing it back and forth, and I was laughing at the names between the two of us of guys who I know turn down podcasts every day.
And then I started thinking, shit, I got to stop messaging people because we got like 3 months worth of guests already. That are all
podcast.
And they're all going to think they're the most important person who gets the first episode, right? So, like Jose's going to be heartbroken to realize he's not on till episode 30.
I'm also at the same time going to have to somehow bribe him with some silver to actually get on the show.
He'll find a way to make a buck out of it. Definitely. Leave it to Jose. So we're gonna wrap up episode 1, Dusty.
Absolutely.
Is that how it's gonna go?
Yes, sir.
So give people the little. We can't have all this this massive production value and not try to pimp yourself out a little bit. So just let us know, like, what's Dusty doing right now? How can you get a hold of you?
Right now we're officially in an off season, which I haven't done in a minute, as a lot of you guys know. I'm actually relearning how to eat massive amounts of food, which we'll discuss next week. It's a pain in the ass to remember how to eat this kind of food again.
Yeah.
And the big one is just make sure you guys are jumping on for now. My Instagram obviously is going to be funneling a lot of this stuff, but we're going to be putting the YouTube version of this show on my YouTube for a little bit, which is just literally just go on the Dusty Hanshaw. I'll pop up there, and we'll be popping that up probably today or tomorrow after this goes up. So it's going to be for about a month and a half. That's where it'll be until we get our channel kind of built up, and then we're going to have our own channel to do all this stuff, and you guys will be seeing all the podcasts there. We'll do them live. We'll do them on all the Spotifys and every other way to make sure that whether you guys are sitting at home eating breakfast or doing your cardio, you got a way to listen to our banter.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, watch my Instagram. Dusty and I talked. We're not going to do a separate Instagram for the show. We decided to just use our own Instagrams. That's just, I got enough going on. I got the gym Instagram. I got my Instagram. So I got my dog barking. You know how it goes. So we're just going to use our Instagrams, but we're going to, the audio version will be on Advices Radio, and then obviously funneled through to iTunes and all that. Scott's going to take care of that. And then the video version, like Dusty said, we're going to use Dusty's channel while we get ours established and sort of point everyone over there, go that way to the other one. So we'll set that up for you guys. I want to thank Scott and Advices Radio for helping us out producing this, because Dusty and I, we're really good at showing up and talking, and then just kind of ghosting everybody, just like we do at the
done.
Yeah, like how we do at the trade shows.
Yep, we're done. See ya.
Yeah, we're done. You guys put the booth away. So that's how we're gonna do it. Myself, just reach me on my Instagram, Rep300. And, Dusty and I are both always looking for clients that want to bust ass and work really hard, but don't waste our time. Okay, thanks, my friend. Next episode will be
1 week.
1 week?
Yes, sir.
Are we gonna commit to weekly? Because I think with the number of guests we have that are messaging us, we're gonna have to.
Yeah, no, I figured that out. Basically, this first day we talked, this is a weekly thing now. So
yeah.
Shoulders get pushed back till 1 o'clock permanently on Monday.
Okay. Well, maybe you'll meet some new friends going to the gym at a different time, Dusty.
Oh no.
Maybe you can start some new relations in the community would be good for you. I'm gonna have to as the show gets more popular and we get more comfortable and the guests get more crazy, I'm gonna have to deal with the fact that all the new people that I know from the gym, they never knew all Ron.
Uh-oh.
Right, so now it's going to be like, some of them might tune in and it'll be worlds colliding. They're going to be like, oh my God, this guy's a sick, twisted individual. Once we get going and I really relax, I'm going to start saying stuff I'll regret, I'm sure. So, but we'll have some fun with it. Thanks, Dusty. Remember, it's just bodybuilding. We're out.